You are listening to GeekFest Rants on the IC Robots Radio Network.
You have located GeekFest Rants, the entertainment podcast for genre geeks like you.
Shall we play a game?
Covering the world of vintage and current film and television since 2010.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Featuring in-depth conversations on sci-fi, horror, fantasy, comics, toys, and conventions.
So say we all. So say we all.
And now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show.
Do you believe there's a part of yourself that you don't show anybody? When I'm inside, I get to see those things. I feel them.
These girls were kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. Our killer is a white male, about 30 years old.
Carl Rudolph Starger. Squad's had the house under surveillance for about 20 minutes.
He keeps them in this thing for about 40 hours. And after 40 hours, the water starts. And it doesn't stop. There is a girl that is missing. Her name is Julia Hickson. He is the only one that knows where she is.
If he was conscious, do you think that he would tell you where she is?
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
You bring in this monster, and you're asking her to go into that mine.
Where's Julia Hickson?
No.
She's gone very deep into his world.
So she's made contact.
What are you talking?
She's lost. She thinks this is real.
I'm going in to get her.
In what world do you live in?
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perron, and today we are going to be talking about dreams. Specifically, films that have to do with being able to control your dreams. We are going to talk about some recent movies and some not so recent movies, and specifically one movie that I bet you a lot of people have never seen before. The granddaddy of probably the best ones so far is Inception, Christopher Nolan's Inception. But there are two other ones. If you go way back to the 80s, you have Dreamscape, a somewhat cheesy version of the being able to control your dreams scenario, but it's still kind of good. And for the time, it was pretty good. And then we're going to talk about The Cell. Again, this not very well-known crime thriller that once again has this connection about being able to go into people's dreams and control them. Recently watched this one, and it's just as good or even better. It's a very underappreciated artsy kind of film, in my opinion. Then we're going to switch gears when we talk about our collectibles, and we're going to be dealing with Force Friday that recently just happened. Again, this is the time where they unleashed all these new Star Wars toys because of the upcoming film. We have The Last Jedi coming up at the end of the year, and what they've been doing lately is they've been having the Force Fridays take place in September to kind of give you a peek kind of what's coming, from that particular line. Now, don't get me wrong, we still have more coming, probably in November, right before Christmas, because, they always like to do another big pre-Christmas push, of toys. But let's go over, the type of stuff that's out there right now that we've been kind of hunting through all these different stories and our successes and our failures of what we found. So it's a pretty good amount of stuff that I've seen so far. So let's get started with our Dream Control segment.
What did I teach you?
You are the Duke of New York. You're a number one.
You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
Can you dig it?
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
That spawn of Satan.
Oh, really?
The Force will be with you, always.
For today's film segment, we are going to examine a certain genre, if you will. It's a very small genre of filmmaking, and what I'm talking about is a specific theme, and that is being able to control your dreams. Films that deal with characters that have the ability to control not only their dreams, but other people's dreams. Now, the way that I'm approaching the subject is more from a science fiction-y kind of scientific angle. In other words, there are many films that could kind of hop in and out of this subject, of this genre. For example, the most obvious is Nightmare on Elm Street. With that type of a film, you're more in the horror genre. And the science, if you will, of how the character is able to tap into other people's dreams is basically supernatural in terms of it just happens. You don't really need an explanation. You just know that this particular bad guy has that particular power, and he will, wreak havoc on everybody based on that power. The ones that I'm talking about are more the scientific ones. And there's 3 films we're going to be talking about today, and that is, one of them is The Cell, the other one is Dreamscape, and the other one is Inception. All these films came out pretty much, wide apart from each other. Dreamscape came out in 1984. The Cell came out in 2000, and Inception in 2010. These are technically very different films in terms of the style and the manner in they were done. Completely different directors with completely different perspectives of it. But the cool thing about these 3 films is that they all use some kind of science. They do back up their story with some kind of a scientific reason for it happening. The first one I'm going to talk about is, I'm going to hit the middle one, The Cell. And the reason was, recently I've been showing my son, a lot of different types of movies. And to me, The Cell was a movie that came out definitely way after Silence of the Lambs. But it does seem to have, to me at least, a sense of artistic and just dread in terms of your bad guy, your serial killer bad guy, that reminded me a lot of Silence of the Lambs. The art direction, the way that things are done. Granted, this film is way more artistically driven than Silence of the Lambs, but there was some kind of connection that I somehow made with that movie. Now, The Cell, if you guys don't remember, or if you haven't seen it, and again, we're going to do spoilers plenty on this segment, is a kind of like a psychological thriller, if you will. And what's cool about it is that you don't understand the connections until you're like maybe a quarter into the film. You have to be a little bit into it to realize where the connection is between these 2 different stories that are being told. On one hand, you're being told a story about a woman who's doing what appears to be medical work having to do with dreams. This little boy is having these horrible dreams, and she's been kind of treating him, apparently for a long time. And the parents are kind of like tired of the treatment, and they don't think it's working, and she seems to be getting closer and closer to whatever the problem it is with this boy. The audience sees her trips into the boy's mind, which is what's happening. She has the ability, not by a supernatural nature, but just by science. There's a sign, they have a machine, they can hook them up, they both hook them up, they monitor their signs, and she is able to, by the MacGuffin of the film, to be able to transport herself into his dreams and try to work with him. She's kind of like a therapist. The problem being is that the person's dreams you enter, you're at the mercy of their world. So you kind of have to stand up to the weird things that person might be throwing at you. In this case, it's a child, so it's not really that crazy bad. So we kind of get to know her and her problems with, the parents don't want to keep going, and she's getting upset, and and, the research team wants, is behind her, but, at the same time, they're kind of losing faith. The parents are losing faith in her. And then you're being told at the same time another story of this guy who is basically a serial killer. Now, at first, you have your doctor who's doing the research work, played by Jennifer Lopez. This is one of her probably early on film roles that she had. And the serial killer is played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who's, again, one of my favorite actors. He is just a madman in terms of the type of roles he plays and how he gets into these roles. This one is probably one of his top 5, I would say. You have your Private Pile from Full Metal Jacket, the Kingpin in Daredevil. He's awesome. This movie, he's great at it. He's done some bad roles too. Don't get me wrong. He kind of phones it in every now and then, but these are some of the best ones. And here he plays a serial killer who has a history of being abused as a child, and mainly because of his upbringing and because of his abuse, from his father, he now is a full-blown serial killer. And he just plays it so creepily weird. But we only get to see him as he is capturing and doing these weird things with these women that he's capturing and eventually killing. So we also have Vince Vaughn as the lead cop investigator who's chasing this guy, and Jake Weber, who's been in just about every other television show and a couple of movies here or there as his kind of like his sidekick, tracking this killer. So they get to a point in the movie, and again, this is kind of like you're watching two stories at the same time. You get to the point in the movie where they seem to have enough clues as to where this guy is going and where he's going to be next and where they're going to get him, and they realize and they find it. And because of some hair that they find that belongs to his dog, and the dog is so rare because he's kind of like an albino shepherd or something like that, they figure out where he is and they come and get him. But the guy, as he's going through these murders, he's also having these seizures. He's having some kind of brain problems and he's taking these pills. Well, by the time they finally find him, he's already suffered some kind of a seizure that basically puts him into a coma. So now the problem is they have a victim that he has already kidnapped, and that person is most likely going to be dead pretty soon because of these drowning rooms that he puts them in to drown them. And they kind of know that in a couple of hours, that person is probably going to drown. And they really can't figure out, how are they going to find where this place is? And that kind of is where your link is. A doctor suggests, hey, why don't you go talk to this lady in this special, division. They're doing some research having to do with, dreams and that sort of thing. And, they're completely out of answers. So they just go to her and they say, you know what, let's give this a shot. And they all agree to do it. See if she can kind of enter his mind to find out where they're keeping this woman. So through the film, you get to experience these trips that she makes into his mind, into his world. And his world is this bizarre, surreal, nightmare world of his entire upbringing and his adulthood and everything that's led to him. And at one point, she even brings Vince Vaughn into it because she kind of needs help because this guy is a monster. And the different interpretations of how he sees himself as a creature, as a god, as a really weird thing. I mean, the art direction that I mentioned earlier, this is where the art direction kicks into full gear in this movie. It is just fantastic. What they do with costumes and settings and images. It's just a very, very unusual thing to see in film, but it's perfect for this setting because it is a dream world that you're actually, interacting in. You finally get to a point where they finally do get the clue of where it is, that he's keeping her, to make a long story short, and then they are able to find her and they rescue her in the last minute. And part of the reason was because instead of her going into his world, he allowed him to come to her world. And that is kind of how she's able to figure out what he, in order to get more clues as to where he's keeping this girl. And the movie ends, I believe, with her, the guy's dead. He's finally dead. He has another seizure, but they're able to get the information out of him, and they find the girl, rescue her, and she is kind of back to trying to help this young boy, in a different manner here. I believe she might at this point try out the opposite, which is what she did with the serial killer, and that is let him come to her mind, which is something they were not wanting to try. It's like the thing that we don't do this, and then they did it and it worked out fine. Again, this is a very good movie. I don't think it made a lot of money. I don't think it was very successful. I don't think you can consider it a hit. They apparently made a sequel, which might have been straight to video, for all I know. I haven't seen it. I don't know much about it. I know that the director of this movie, he's an Indian director who had done a lot of music videos. He did the Losing My Religion REM video. He might have done some Madonna videos here or there. And he's done some more movies afterwards, which I might have to try to track down to see if his style has carried on from year to year. But this is a very good movie. One of the things that I absolutely love about this movie is that the suits that they wear when they enter this world. In other words, they have to be drugged, they have to be suspended. They suspend them in these wires in this room, this kind of darkish room. And the suits that they're being suspended by look almost identical to the Bram Stoker Dracula Count Vlad red bat suits, the armor, the Turkish armor that he's wearing in the beginning of the movie. It's almost exactly like that. And I wish I would have to research a little more about it to see if they did reuse those suits or if they did the same person did them, but I absolutely love them. And in the movie, you have a whole bunch of them because you have the little boy wearing the suit at one point and her, and then it's D'Onofrio wearing one, her, and Vince Vaughn. He's the third person because when they introduce a third person into the, it's also very, very, very violent in terms of there's some images that are pretty disturbing. And this film, it looks like it really rode the line, with a hard R in terms of, I wonder if they had to delete certain things to get to an R rating because, wow, some stuff is really strong. But it is really cool and how it displays that ability, being able to enter other people's dreams through a scientific manner. Now, the earlier film that is kind of in this wheelhouse is Dreamscape. Now, Dreamscape, if you guys remember, you might not, is science fiction film. It's not so much a horror film. This is, The Cell is more like a crime thriller. Dreamscape is more sci-fi thriller. And it stars Dennis Quaid, who used to be a very big deal in the 80s and early 90s. It also stars Max von Sydow, Christopher Plummer, Eddie Albert, and Kate Capshaw. And this is a story about a guy who used to work for possibly some government type of research group because he was considered to be psychic. He had the ability to, read other people's minds. But for whatever reasons, he kind of left the group and then went on his own, and he started using his powers to kind of gamble and got involved with the mob, owes them money. The mob is chasing him around because they want him to use them, so he can make money for them. And he is kind of recruited once again by that previous group because, they have a project for him they want to be involved in. What's apparently happening is that the president of the United States is having these really bad apocalyptic dreams about the nuclear war and this and that, so they're trying to treat him for that problem, and they can't really figure out how to help him, and they want to bring him to this research group to see if they can help him because they've been doing work with dreams, being able to affect people's dreams to maybe cure them of something. The problem is that in this film, you have another sinister governmental group that is thinking of assassinating the president, and they want to do it through a dream. And the way that they're planning on doing it is by having another so-called psychic or another person that has similar abilities, including being able to enter somebody's dreams. Now, in this particular case, even though you're dealing in a scientific realm, they're able to kind of do it without too much gear, if you think about it, in this particular case. The guy can kind of sit next to him and kind of enter the person's mind and enter the person's dream without being plugged into any specific machine or anything like that, even though you do have a scientific background monitoring all this happening. Now, what's cool is that what they do is that the way that they kind of trick or entice Dennis Quaid's character into coming to the group and helping them out is because they says, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to use so-and-so. And so-and-so, which is the thug, the crazy psychotic thug that the bad guy has working for him, is played by David Patrick Kelly. David Patrick Kelly has played a bad guy for a lot of movies in the 80s. And the most probably recognizable role that he had was he was the lead bad guy in The Warriors. He was the Warriors come out and play. Hey, that guy, that's him. So he plays the other guy who has the similar abilities. And he is very, very violent and aggressive when he enters people's dreams. At a certain point, it turns into kind of like, they're inside the president's dreams, who's played by Eddie Albert, and they're kind of chasing the bad guy around, and the bad guy's trying to kill the president, and the bad guy's trying to kill the good guys, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the whole thing ends with they finally get ready. They kill the bad guy, they capture the guy in charge, the president's okay, and, the love interest, Kate Capshaw, she kind of falls in love with him, I guess, and that sort of thing. It's very 80s, the movie. It's very dated, but it does have that special, dream quality about it where they are capable of entering a person's dreams and interacting with the imaginary things that are happening in the dream. The special effects are also a little dated. This is a lot of, matte paintings and blue screen work, stop motion work. It's whatever was around in the 80s. So it's not that great in terms of how good it looks, but it is a good entry into this sort of a movie. What's also interesting about this movie is that it is the second film to have a PG-13 rating. Previous to this film, Red Dawn had gotten the first one. John Milius' Red Dawn. This is the second one. And if you guys, again, if you're old enough and remember or care, the reason why PG-13 came about was because movies like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins, who were released as PG films, there was some kind of blowback because there were some violent scenes that people were a little rattled by. And Spielberg, he kind of campaigned to have the MPAA create a new rating to kind of help the audience out and to be able to categorize these films, without necessarily turning them into R-rated films, because you turn them R-rated, you're going to get less of an audience than it is if it is PG. So they created this PG-13. And like I said, this is the second film to carry the PG-13 rating. Another thing that's notable about this film, and this is something, since I've been doing these segments recently about posters, this isn't a poster I'm going to own. I'm not that crazy about it. But if you look at the poster for Dreamscape, it looks like a Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. They were trying so hard to tie it to some kind of an action-y adventure thing, and it's not action-adventure. It's sci-fi crime thriller, somewhat of an adventure. But it's so funny how they try so hard with the poster to make it look like something it's really not. But I do recommend, again, if you're into these type of movies, this is another one that you got to watch. Like I said before, there's so many other movies that deal with dreams, what dreams may come, The Matrix, this alternate worlds, alternate reality type of scenarios. But these three films that we're talking about today are all linked by a very heavy, heavy, heavy technical sci-fi world. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is Inception, which is probably the best of all of these films. It is a landmark for Christopher Nolan. I'm a huge fan of Nolan, all the way back to Memento, which I still think it's just one of my top. You have your genre films, and it's hard to kind of weave together serious films and genre films. I hate to make lists of these are my top 3 favorite films in the world, and it's hard because it depends on the genre. You know what I mean? It just depends on the genre. But for movies that are non-sci-fi, if you will, heavy sci-fi fantasy, like a Star Wars, Star Trek, that sort of thing, you could kind of lump Inception into it because it is a science fiction-y theme in terms of that kind of technology doesn't exist. So they kind of have to lump it into sci-fi. But it is more than just sci-fi. It's a straight, serious film with a sci-fi edge to it. With Inception, you're dealing with a group now, a private group of people, which is apparently in this particular year that they're dealing with, it is perfectly legal to hire these people for a corporate security by being able to protect yourself from other people who are doing this to you, by you doing it to them before they do it to you, and that kind of thing. With Inception, it deals with back and forth of all this stuff about stealing people's secrets, and there's a backstory having to do with somebody who died in the middle of this whole procedure of being able to tap into somebody's dreams. And here you're also dealing with, theft, being able to steal people's secret codes and secret information, through their dreams. And I'm not going to get deep into Inception in terms of the plot, because it is a hard movie to kind of follow in terms of Inception is not a passive film. You want to see passive, you go see any Marvel film. Marvel films are popcorn films. You're there, just enjoy it and just let it kind of blanket you over with sensory overload. Inception and many of Nolan's films, you have to invest your brain into these things, because a lot of times you're being told a story out of order in different time sequences, and you have to kind of place things together as to where they fit. Inception had a lot of super talented actors. Some of them established already, some of them starting to peak at that time. Obviously, Leonardo DiCaprio, he was a megastar already, and he became even bigger. Ellen Page was kind of up and coming, and she was, this gave her a boost. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, this put him on the map even more than before. Tom Hardy gets a huge boost here. He gets catapulted from kind of like a background player or a background actor, a forgettable actor, into a leading man. After this, he started to get leading roles. Cillian Murphy, another one of my favorite. Tom Berenger has a kind of like a cameo, a short role, which is kind of weird watching him return to films, big important films. Michael Caine, who seems to be Nolan's ingenue. He's in mostly every one of his films nowadays. The music was unbelievable. Hans Zimmer did a tremendous job in this movie. The special effects are just ridiculous. The way that they manipulate scenery, cities, hotel rooms, houses, they just fold things and twist them and turn them, and people are able to interact within them. And like I said, it's a smart story. All these twists and turns, all these capers that they go through. It's almost like a Mission Impossible type of scenarios where they have to stage certain things so they can enter other people's mind. And the adventures that they're having in people's minds are incredible. They're so well shot and so action-packed. And because it's a dream, you are able to do things you're never going to be doing in real life. And again, Inception is the high benchmark, not only for the theme, not only for the specific theme of movies that have to do with being able to enter people's dreams, but just the craftsmanship that this movie contains. It just completely blows you away. I love these type of films. I always look forward to Christopher Nolan films. Memento, like I said before, is one of my favorite overall films. If you want to put him in the category of serious films, like I was trying to say earlier, it's probably one of my top 5. It's not a passive movie. You have to think. And Memento messes with your mind so much because you're trying to figure things out. The whole movie's being told in reverse. And even this movie, you're being told through several flashbacks here or there, and you're trying to figure out, well, did this happen first or did that happen first? And what exactly happened? Because as the movie progresses, you're learning, the what is it about DiCaprio's character, that what is that thing that's haunting him, that something happened to his love interest a while back that completely screwed him up, and you kind of get to learn that throughout as you progress throughout the movie. So there you have 3 films you could watch. You might have seen some of them already. There might be 1 or 2 there that are completely brand new to you. Like I said before, there are many, many other films that kind of go into the realm of dreaming. It's just that a lot of times it's more supernatural. The act of entering the dream and being able to interact within that dream is not so much the lead of the story. You have a movie like The Matrix, which involves not so much dreaming, but being in a induced coma that enslaves mankind, basically, to be able to become docile and do whatever it is that these machines want you to do. That's heavy, heavy sci-fi, like way heavy sci-fi. These are a little more where you could kind of say, well, yeah, this could be scientifically possible in, X amount of years. You could kind of get into that point, as opposed to, like I said before, with like Nightmare on Elm Street and some of these other horror films where the bad guy knows your dreams or is able to enter your mind and mess with you. Okay, that's a little way, way out there because they do take a different route to where you're going. All these films obviously are available on video. I'm sure Netflix has a couple of them. So, yeah, give them a try. I'm pretty sure you won't be disappointed.
You can collect them all.
You are a toy!
Batteries not included. those wonderful toys.
Details on specially marked packages at participating stores.
Is that the $6 Million Man's boss?
It's Oscar Goldman.
Why do you have that?
That's worth a lot of money. That's much more valuable than Steve Austin.
Action figures each sold separately.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end.
Some assembly required.
All your favorite Star Wars heroes and villains.
I have 3 of each. 1 to display, 1 to open, and 1 just in case.
For a broader Star Wars collecting news, I want to talk a little bit about Force Friday 2. This is what took place a couple days ago. Force Friday, again, was the original one, is the one that they consider to be, that Friday where they start previewing some of the toys for, movies that are coming out having to do with Star Wars, obviously. And this happens usually around this time of the year, September. Now, granted, the movies do come out in December, but in September, they start giving us the first wave, I guess, of toys that are related to that motion picture. We've participated in a number of those. Didn't do it back when the original ones took place, I think it was around the time of Revenge of the Sith, possibly. I believe they had I think they used to call them Midnight Madnesses, I think. Could be wrong, but I think that's what they were back then. And most recently, with the new Disney films, they had similar events for The Force Awakens and for Rogue One. I remember for The Force Awakens, Kyle and I went to a Toys R Us store nearby where they were having these exclusive giveaways as, part of the first group of people that would go in. And I remember we got some, I think it was posters and some junk like that. Nothing too special. And it was a bit of a mad rush. You go in there with everybody else and everybody's grabbing stuff left and right off the walls. And I remember I did grab a few things because, when you line up at 11 o'clock at night waiting for midnight, you don't want to come out empty-handed when it's all said and done. But it was kind of wacky the way that it was done. Now, for Rogue One, they didn't go that crazy. Maybe that was more of a Midnight Madness. I don't remember for sure. But I remember for that second one, we didn't do the lineup outside Toys R Us version of this. What we did was we went to our local Walmart that's only 5 minutes away at midnight, and there was obviously nobody lining up because it's a 24-hour Walmart. So we just walked in there with the famous, nighttime Walmart crew of people that visit that store at midnight, which is a show on itself, just the midnight Walmart people. But we just went to the aisle, and there had some Rogue One stuff. Not a lot, but a couple of things. And we grabbed a few things. No big deal. So this time around, Kyle is not here. He's in college now. So, I knew that he was going to be going to Walmart or Target or Toys R Us, whatever he could find nearby, with a friend from school. He wasn't going to go alone. And originally, I didn't want to go. And I said, all right, what the heck? I'll go on my own here, just nearby, the one that's close. And, at the same time as Kyle. So it's it'll be kind of like we're both going, at the same time, 2.5 hours away from each other. So I walked into my Walmart and I go to that section. It's midnight and they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing. Well, that's not true. They did have a Nerf gun, I think. I think that's the only Last Jedi item they put up. And I asked the guys, hey, aren't you supposed to be putting up all your... Oh, yeah, well, the thing, there might be some stuff over here and there was something over there. They had nothing up, basically. And again, the Midnight Crew, they were clueless. So I went home pretty upset. Nothing, couldn't find anything. And the next day, as I was going home, Kyle's texted me that he's found the things he was looking for because he ended up going to Target because he said his Walmart didn't have anything either. But he had a pretty good score at Target. And he was looking for 6-inch figures, Thrawn, Stormtrooper, and I think he was looking for... Maybe he was looking for Hera. I forget. But his were specific items that he was looking for. And I really wasn't. I just wanted to know what was out there. I've seen some pictures. So the pictures were starting to interest me. But I wanted to see them myself. But the following day, I was able to stop at a Target nearby. And there I scored some pretty good stuff. Stuff that I was looking for. Stuff that I wasn't looking for. But let me just go over what I found. And then I'll talk about the remainder of the stuff that's out there that's, interesting. Some I'm still looking for, some I'm not. And let's just remember, my general rule is, if there's a lot of good stuff to buy, it's great because there's a lot of good stuff to buy. And there's not a lot of good stuff to buy, that's even better because that means I don't have to spend money. And whatever collection I'm after, I'll be done after a very, short amount of time. So one of the things I picked up is I believe it's an 18-inch Praetorian Guard, which is these new characters from Last Jedi, which I'm going to talk about in detail in a few minutes. But it's about an 18-inch figure. I think it's Pacific Jack who makes these extra super large figures. And he is bigger than anything I've ever had before. And he is outrageously, ridiculously big. And it comes from this line. I think they make something like 4 different sizes. They make like a foot-long one, then the 18-inch one. And I could be wrong, but I think for other figures, they made even 2 more sizes. One that's like about maybe 2 feet long, or 2.5 feet long, and then one that's almost like 4 feet long, 4 feet tall, actually, at this point. They don't have those super gigantic ones out yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start making them at some point, because they made so many other ones. But anyway, the one I got is, like I said, the 18-inch one, which is great. He's wearing this red armor that is brand new for the film. He's got this lance with a blade. He's got this super, super cool helmet that I absolutely love. I bought for my daughter, which she doesn't know yet, and hopefully she won't listen to this for a while, because her birthday is this month. I bought her this new, let's see, they're called Porgs. They're supposed to be a big deal, I guess, in this new movie. It's the cute creature of the movie, I guess. They're kind of like a combination of birds and penguins. A really cute looking thing. Well, the one I got is the electronic one, the one that you press its stomach and it moves around and hops around and talks. I got her that one. That's about, I don't know, maybe about 8 inches tall. Then I got her a stuffed one that's about 1 foot tall, which I guess maybe that's the real size it's supposed to be. And then I got her a Funko one because she's been collecting all these little Funko figures with the big, black eyes. So she's got one of each. And like I said, I'm saving those for her birthday. I also got a 2-pack of Rey and the Praetorian Guard, but it's wearing a different sort of helmet. From what I understand, the costume is the same, just different helmet, different weapon. And this is a 2-pack, 3 3/4 inch. So that was my score in general of what I was able to get. But if you are into Star Wars and you want to start forking down some serious dough, you have a lot of things to pick from. Disney stores and the Disney parks, they came out with these, and it's nothing new. They've had them already for the last 2 movies. These heavy metal 6-inch versions of the figures they've been putting out lately, but they're a little more expensive. They're about $25, $26 a pop, and they're the Elite Series die-cast action figures. In the past, these have been completely beautiful figures, very heavy, sturdy. They're die-cast, obviously, but they've done an amazing job. Well, now they have a whole bunch of new ones. Rey, the new Luke, with his new robes, all these new characters that are, from this new film in their new outfits. They do have another Elite Praetorian Guard. This one has a different helmet. It has a helmet. Now, this is something I'm going to talk about quite a bit because I'm slowly becoming obsessed with these. I absolutely love armor that is red. Red armor. And I've talked about this when I did my Bram Stoker's Dracula and earlier, on a piece that we did today about the movie The Cell, where they kind of reused those costumes. I think they reused them. They look almost exactly the same. The style is identical from that particular designer that she did both Dracula and The Cell. When you take armor, and armor in a way, it's supposed to look like scales, like scaled pieces of armor, with your arms or your chest or your... Well, what they've done with these Elite Praetorian Guards is they created these scaled arms to go along with the armor, and it's a progression, if you will, of the Royal Guard or the Coruscant Special Guards, those ones that were all in blue that looked like they were wearing like Roman armor. I mean, obviously that's where they're coming from. That then kind of evolved, I guess, into the Red Royal Guards from the Emperor. Well, movie-wise anyway, the progression of that moves on to these type of characters now, which, again, they're absolutely beautiful. I think Clone Wars also had a Jedi Temple Guard. It wasn't exactly this type of thing. I mean, it definitely wasn't red and it wasn't armor, but it had a mask and it gave you that feel of these silent, deadly kind of warriors. But anyway, in this film, they're introducing a series of these guards that they seem to be, from what I gather so far, and I could be wrong, they seem to be all wearing the same type of uniform in terms of their armor, but their differences seem to take place in the helmet and the weapons they wield. Well, here with the Disney Elite series, you have a particular one. Now, so far, I've been able to see 3 different helmets. There might be more that I haven't seen yet. And, once the movie comes out or we're getting closer to the movie, we'll be able to see the differences. But there seems to be 3 different versions. The first version is the one that I got as the large figure. And I'm going to call that the flat, solid helmet, which is a very solid helmet, slight little overlap between the cap part of the helmet and the visor part of the helmet. Kind of like, I would call it an eagle looking when it looks straight onto you. Okay, that's the standard one. Then you have one that seems to have that faceplate just like the other one, but the cap version is much bigger. It way overlaps down into, the head structure. That one is the one that I got as a 2-pack 3 3/4 with Rey. Then apparently there's a third version floating around that I have to pinpoint exactly in what manner is going to be sold. I already seen it as a special, I think it's a Bandai toy, so it's something coming from Japan, not your standard type of collecting item that I'm used to dealing with. But the helmet is almost a reverse in terms of the cap is a normal size cap, let's say, of the helmet, but the faceplate seems to be slightly higher than the cap, giving it a slight underbite, if you will. If the one I have has an overbite, the one I'm talking about has an underbite. So it seems to have almost like a reverse hook taking place with the helmet. Again, I absolutely love that. It's so different. And they have all different types of weapons. So it's almost, I think, very also martial arts-y in terms of all these different blade and pikes and whips. Futuristic, obviously, sci-fi, Star Wars-y type of stuff. But that's another one they have. There's what they call the First Order Executioner Trooper or the Judicial Trooper. And it's supposed to be, I guess, a trooper whose specialty is executing other troopers, possibly. That's what I'm kind of hearing. And he has this, what it basically amounts to an electronic axe, let's say, because it's a staff that he's holding with 2 sections, and then when he activates it, I guess there's like a lightning-y type of electric part that completes the circle and becomes like an axe, and I guess that can go through armor or something. I don't know, but I think that's the direction we're heading. Now these are all, like I said, these are the die-cast ones, which means that sooner or later, whatever you see in the die-cast mode will come out as a 6-inch figure, or they might be rolling them out at the same time. Very dangerous thing to collect, because as you guys remember, if you think of the 6-inch line in terms of, okay, you have 3 3/4, then you have 6-inch. Well, 3 3/4 is only 3 3/4. 6-inch, you have 2 versions, the regular Black Series and the die-cast Disney exclusive series. Regular Black Series, you might be paying about, I don't know, $18 to $20 a pop. The Disney die-cast, you're going to be paying $25, $26 a pop. So those get to be a little expensive, but like I said, it is just a completely different animal. Those things just look so much better. The sculpt, the paint apps, the weathering, they are amazing what they do with these things. It's just ridiculous. Well, they do have also a Chewbacca with little porgs attached to, next to his feet. So it comes with extra accessories. The porgs are the accessories here. There's a Finn dressed up as a First Order officer. There's a Poe Dameron in a kind of like a Han Solo-ish outfit, if you will. Very dark palettes, jacket. It's not really a uniform. It's more of a relaxed outfit. Then you have a new character named Rose, who's played by an Asian actress that might be important here. I think they're introducing a new character, and she seems to come with a BB-8 as an accessory. There's a C-3PO, Captain Phasma, which we've already gotten a Captain Phasma, so I don't know if they've done anything to make it any different. Hard to tell. There's the Supreme Leader Snoke. Now, this is a taller than average type of figure, very thin, yellowish kind of robes, disfigured face, We are, I guess, going to learn sooner or later what his deal is. They are a number of what you call the multi-pack figures, similar to what I got for the 2-pack of Rey and the Elite Guard. Well, there's a couple of other multi-packs that are Rey, Luke, Rose, and a Trooper. Now, what you might call the gimmick of the week, they are rolling out this time around something called a Force Link, which when you get a figure close to this Force Link device, the figure will talk. The figure's not talking. It's the Link device that talks. They've tried something like this. I remember back when The Phantom Menace came out. You would buy this separate item and it would talk to you. They're kind of doing the same thing now. It's a different type of device, but one of the features of it is that it will make your figure talk and interact with other figures and that sort of thing. So, that is definitely not why I would buy any of these, but it's just another gimmick. We'll see where they go with it, or even if they continue it. Certain lights will light up and they'll say certain things and certain sound effects you'll hear, everything specific per character. Now, these Force Link devices that you can buy separate, some of them come with figures. So it's like a combo pack. You can buy them. This way you don't just have to buy it. You can get those figures. So there is a kit that has that First Order Executioner and a Praetorian Guard, which is like, I hope they don't make these exclusives, because if you're chasing those down, it's a bit of a pain in the butt. There's a Kylo Ren Force Link starter kit also, which is a Kylo Ren and that handheld device that you put on your hand to make it talk. Now, there's a playset for 3 3/4 figures. The playset, when unassembled, it looks like BB-8. When you open it up, it gives you these little settings to interact with these characters. Now, this big set, and it's expensive, it's a $200 playset. Playsets are very, very rare. They only do them once in a very long time because they usually don't end up selling. They usually end up regretting playsets. But they're doing it. This one comes with a Force Link attachment and 2 figures, another Praetorian Guard and a Snoke. Now, I know that also the Sphero company that made the Sphero BB-8 is coming out with a BB-9E, which is another BB-8 kind of character that's in the movie that is supposed to be a bad guy droid, let's say. And that's one I also forgot to mention earlier. Of the ones that I got for my daughter, I got her a Funko version of that droid too. The Sphero company is also putting out an R2-D2 Sphero so that you can kind of control him in the same manner that you control your Sphero BB-8s. So they're kind of venturing out into other shaped items, I guess. In this case, you're talking R2, so you can only kind of move him from the legs. It's not a rolling type of device like it was, with these other two. Now, the big figures, the ones I was just talking about before, similar to the 18-inch Praetorian Guard that I got, Jakks Pacific is putting out others. In that kind of size range, there's a 20-inch Rey, Kylo Ren, the one I just mentioned that I have, First Order Stormtrooper. On the Lego side, they've put out a couple of new ships. There's a Resistance transport pod. It's a weird little ship that seems to carry a secondary compartment on the side seems to be able to move things around. Maybe this is where Finn is going to be transported somewhere because we see it in the trailer. Possibly that's what they're using. There's a bizarre-looking First Order walker called the First Order Heavy Scout Walker. And it's a bizarre-looking vehicle for Lego because you really can't tell exactly what it looks like. It's very odd. It almost looks like a spider with its legs kind of curled up underneath. And perched on top, you have First Order troopers shooting down and using cannons, almost like an AT-ST type of thing. But it seems to be moving on maybe 8 legs or more. Unusual one. Then you have Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter, which we've seen pictures of this before, not only as a Lego, but as a regular toy. It looks like to be a combination of a TIE Interceptor and Vader's Advanced X-Wing. It's got that shape. It's got those triangular shapes, but it also has Vader's TIE Fighter kind of dimensions. There's the Resistance Bomber. Now, this is an interesting one because we definitely do see a whole bunch of these on the trailer. It's these ships that seem to have a rudder in the bottom, if you will. It has wings, but then it has this long rudder that goes down. It reminds me a little bit of the medical frigates that had that rudder-looking thing underneath. There's the First Order Assault Walker. Now, this is also, I think, nicknamed the Guerrilla Walkers. We've seen pictures. We kind of understand what they are now. They're similar to the AT-ATs, much, much bigger. And instead of the flat feet in the front, they seem to have what would be equated to gorilla knuckles. It seems to be walking on its knuckles. So I wonder if it's capable of some additional movement that we haven't seen yet. It not only does it have the head guns that we're used to seeing in a typical AT-AT, but it seems to also have guns on top, of its armor plating. There's the First Order Star Destroyer. Again, we haven't seen this one before. It's a Star Destroyer that seems to be obviously huge, but very flatter than your typical Star Destroyer. Almost a combination of a Star Destroyer and an Executor. Was it the Avenger? Was it called? I forget the name of it. Or the Executioner? I think it was the Executor. It doesn't seem to have those large towers that your typical Star Destroyer seems to have in those globes, those shielding globes. It's much flatter, so I guess it's more aerodynamic and more armored, I guess. And I think this is supposed to be Snoke's main ship. There's a Canto Bight Police Speeder and Canto Bight Police. This is a weird ship, this is a new location in the movie. I can barely describe the ship. It's a very minimal ship. It seems to be, I don't think it's a space ship. I think it's more of an atmospheric type of ship because it's not an enclosed cockpit. And it has these funky looking wings with very pointy sides, 4 of them. It looks like I can't even describe it. It's like a fork. It's like 2 forks. It's like you're flying 2 forks almost. Really different. I can't wait to see this thing in action. This is for the 3 3/4 line. There is an A-Wing ship with a Resistance pilot. Again, this is 3 3/4. There's the Resistance Ski Speeder and Poe Dameron. Now, we do see this in the trailer once again. It almost looks kind of like a B-Wing type of ship. And what's unusual that I remember in the trailer, they seem to be either skimming or touching or flying in this formation where by them touching the ground barely, it seems to release this red dust. Now, I don't know if they're just skimming the surface and lifting up red dust, or if they are themselves releasing some kind of red dust as they're flying. We are going to find out, when we watch the film. But they do have a 3 3/4 inch ship and figure version of that. A 3 3/4 version of Kylo Ren's TIE Silencer. Ooh, it's called the Silencer. There's a First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. This is similar to the one they put out before, which is a blackish kind of TIE Fighter with the red stripe, make them more of an elite type of thing. There's an X-Wing ship with Poe Dameron. Now, I'm pretty sure they released something like this before for Force Awakens. I could be wrong, but it is the black and orange version of the X-Wing, of the modern X-Wings. And all of these are Force Link activated, so they're special. In the 3 3/4 line, you have a lot of these figures that come by themselves or as sets, as we mentioned earlier. You have your Rey, you have your new Luke. Finally, you get your Luke. You have your pilot Poe Dameron. You have your Finn. You have your Kylo Ren. Your Rose, what we mentioned earlier. Your Paige. Now, I'm not sure what Paige is. It seems to be a female pilot. Your C-3PO he has a full golden arm. He's relinquished his red arm. Your General Hux, and comes with a mouse droid. That's kind of neat. Your First Order Stormtrooper. You have a 3-pack of Return of the Jedi with the Royal Guard, Luke, and the Emperor. Now, in the 6-inch Black Series, you have a new Kylo Ren. You have Luke, brand new. You have your new Rey. In the 12-inch series now, the 12-inch Intertech figures. Now, these are Hasbro figures that have electronics so they can talk and light up and that sort of thing. There's a Kylo Ren version. There's a First Order Stormtrooper voice changer mask, which is pretty neat. There's a Poe Dameron Black Series electronic helmet. This is an $80 helmet. I've seen pictures of this. These are very nice. Very, very nice. Especially if you're into cosplay. Man, these things are nice. They're weathered and everything, and they have the electronic features, to change your voice. Really cool. Now, Lego also has the buildable figures that I've gotten a number of them. Some for me, some for Kyle. I know that Kyle has gotten some Stormtrooper versions, variations on those type of figures. And I know I did the K2-1B because they never put out one of the size, the foot-long size that I was looking for, unless you have bought that special Target one, which I wasn't about to spend money on. Well, they're putting out a couple of new ones. They have a new Rey. They have a Chewbacca for the first time. There's the Elite Praetorian Guard. Here we go again. Here's a nice one. It's unfortunately it's $25. And this is the one that, as I mentioned earlier, it's the one with the overbite helmet. The one with the cap is way extended below the faceplate. Really nice looking. And these are excellent for Stormtroopers because they're very robotic looking. And I love that when they do that. Now, you want to spend some serious dough, On Legos, there's a $100 BB-8. My God, this thing is big. But unfortunately, that is not even the tip of the spear. In Funko World, as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of Funkos I got for Amanda. There's also a Praetorian Guard for Funko. I don't think I'm going to be getting that one. But the droid that I did get, and I said before, was the BB-9E. A cute little evil droid from what I understand. Lots of other Funkos. Just if you can just think of a character that's coming, it's there. The one thing I like to mention is the Porg that I bought. There's apparently two versions of it. One of them is the Porg with the mouth closed, and the other one is the Porg with the mouth open. That looks a little more threatening than the first one. They have a lot of those little, I don't know if they're called titaniums, but they're the smaller ships, the little tiny ones. They're putting out just about every main ship, the movie came with. Now, a couple of other figure sets for 3 3/4. There's a Vader and a Probe Droid set. This is another one of these 2-packs. I'm not sure exactly how much we're dying for a Probe Droid. I wouldn't mind getting it, to tell you the truth, if they ever put it on clearance, because I'm a little bit of a fan of the Probe Droid, especially since we finally saw one in real proportions when we watched Rogue One. From Force Awakens, there's the Ranthar and one of the goons, the guy that comes after Solo. Solo, what are you, blah, 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 that guy. That's another special, a creature character 2-pack. The other thing that they just apparently released, I haven't seen any of them except for one. The Revell company, the ones that makes those models. Remember when models used to build them and color them and paint them and sand them and do all this crazy stuff to them? Well, now they are just snap assembly and they're done. And they also have electronics built into them, sound and light sometimes. Well, there's 4 new ones for your collection, if you so desire. You have an A-Wing. You have Kylo Ren's new ship. You have this funky, weird AT-AT that I talked about earlier, this monster-sized AT-AT with the gorilla knuckles, and another X-Wing, the black and orange one from Poe. So, be on the lookout for those. The A-Wing is the one that's exclusive to Target. So if you're looking for that, that's where you got to go. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to Jakks Pacific, which is that company I told you about that does the super larger sets, another one of these 19 or 20-inch figures that I was talking about is another version of the one that I have, but again, different helmet. He has the overbite helmet, and he has different weapons that are blades that you can snap them separate and use one in each hand if necessary. So that would be a nice one also to find at some point. The differences between the actual figures seems to be more having to do with which weapons they come with. The overbite helmet one is the one that apparently comes with those 2 blades that could be separated and used. The standard one, the one that I purchased, comes with either the long blade that you have to assemble or a 3-bladed one where you can kind of pick from 3 different blades to assemble. You get to select which one you want, or the single blade one, which is the one that I got. So it's kind of interesting how they're kind of mixing and matching a little bit. So there seems to be variations on this size depending on where you buy them. Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, they will have different weapons and different helmets. So that's something to, make me completely, nuts. Trying to figure out what's what. But it happens. They do that all the time. Now, another one that I ordered, which was through Amazon, and that is another one of these Praetorian Guards in the 6-inch line, just to have a slightly different one, but I have a feeling it might be almost exactly like the large one I got. There is another way that I got something Praetorian Guard related, and that is titanium helmets. I collect the titanium helmets for a while now, and I kind of knew that we had coming a Luke Skywalker X-Wing helmet along with TIE Fighter pilot helmet, original trilogy. They finally announced they're coming before the end of the year. They're part of this wave that it's coming. However, the thing we didn't know at the time was that it was going to be an exclusive GameStop item. So I ordered them from GameStop, haven't arrived yet. They should be here soon. The other one all of a sudden I found on the internet that was popping up was a Praetorian Guard helmet to go along with a First Order Flame Trooper helmet. Very nice Flame Trooper. Now, the Praetorian Guard helmet is the overbite one, the one that's very large. Didn't know these were coming, but here's the catch. Best Buy exclusive. So there is the possibility now that if you're a helmet collector, if you're a titanium helmet collector, we might be heading down unfortunately, the exclusive route. And that could be a good or a bad sign. It could be a good sign because this way you know exactly where to get them and how to order them when they start popping. And that is if they make maybe 2 a year. 2 a year is a nice number. I like 2 a year. 2 a year is pretty good. But it also could be a bad sign. It could be that the sales are not going well, in the general market. So instead, they're going to focus on getting rid of whatever they have or whatever's left of their contract, I guess, and do them through exclusive vendors. So it's a little mixed blessing here, what direction they're going to go with those. Going back to Lego now, and I mentioned earlier, if you think a $100 BB-8 Lego set is peanuts, you could also buy for, get this, $799. You did not hear me wrong. I said $800. For $800, you can order a Millennium Falcon, the UCS Millennium Falcon set. It has 7,541 pieces. This is huge. The complete built thing is probably the size of half a dining room table. Or maybe a full dining room table. I don't know. A small dining room table. It is a huge set. I couldn't even imagine something like that. Owning it, affording it, building it. That thing will take forever to put together. 7,541 pieces. I mean, it is just a monster. Good luck to those who are getting it. That is just insane. Now, another 4-pack that I want to talk about. It's a 6-inch 4-pack of the history, I guess, of the Royal Guards. You have a Coruscant blue-robed Chancellor Palpatine guard, if you remember those from the prequels. You have then your traditional red Emperor's Royal Guard. Then you have what, I guess it's part of the expanded universe, a Royal Guard that is all black, and it's supposed to be, I think, from the Emperor's Shadow Guard. Again, this is all EU that I don't understand. And a more modern Praetorian Guard with the overbite cap. This is a 4-figure set. It's a tough one because it's like, if you just want one of those figures, you got to buy the whole thing. I hate it when they do that. There's an Obi-Wan also sold by itself that is kind of half translucent Obi-Wan, so it's kind of like a ghost of Obi-Wan, kind of. There's a Snoke, we talked about it earlier, that comes with, I guess, some kind of throne. Another cute little set that they have, and this is a Disney Park exclusive, it's the Droid Factory BB Series 4-pack, and this includes BB-8, this new BB-9 something, and 2 other BB droids. And from what I understand, some of them are in the movie in terms of some of them are Rebel versions. So we are going to be seeing more BB units in this and future movies, I guess, because I don't know, maybe the BBs are the standard droid now. The astromechs maybe are kind of not as popular as they used to be. So it's kind of nice to see the progression of the technology of droids, how they kind of change, from trilogy to trilogy. As models take over for older models and that sort of thing. So that's kind of cute. It is a theme park exclusive. The final thing I want to mention that I did see, but I couldn't pick up, they're too expensive, and I know they had exclusive San Diego Comic-Con versions of this, was the Luke Skywalker land speeder with the poncho Gilligan hat Luke. This is a set that I remember I was able to see it when I went to Celebration on display. It is a gorgeous 6-inch version of not only the Luke, but the land speeder. And the land speeder has so many cool little features where you can open up the hood, look under the hood, look at the instruments, look at the seat, look at all the detail they put on it. Is really beautiful. Unfortunately, the regular version of it is about $60, so it is a little too expensive for my taste. And they also have a Grand Admiral Thrawn with a whole bunch of stuff from like his office, let's say, all the decorations and all the trophies that he has. They are also putting out a version of that out. And the other one they also had was a Jakku speeder and array from Force Awakens. That was also one of these, kind of expensive ones that they had out there. The only thing I didn't see too much of, and I haven't really gone to some of the other stores yet, I should try Kohl's, because I understand Kohl's probably gets some stuff too, is clothing, apparel. I haven't seen too many shirts or hats or anything of that matter yet. But keep in mind, there's a whole other wave coming right around the time of the movie. I think it's going to be sometime in November when the next wave will probably start hitting the stores. This way it's there for the Christmas rush and the pre-movie rush, obviously, because the movie is coming around Christmas. So I'm going to have to start checking to see, apparel-wise, what's out there now. There's a few things, don't get me wrong. You can go into Walmart and they have a few Last Jedi type of shirts. But I remember there seemed to be a much, much bigger push with Force Awakens as far as the apparel side went. But like I said, I have to go out there. It's only been a few days right now, so we'll see what else is out there. So hopefully this gives you a little peek into how they are approaching the mass marketing of The Last Jedi, and helps you maybe determine which items are you going to go look for, where are you going to hunt them down, how many you're going to just order online, because online ordering seems to be a very big method of trying to finally find these things, and especially when you're dealing with exclusives, you don't have the time, many times to be able to run around all these different stores. It's like, no, just order them directly from the manufacturer or from the retailer. And, if they do have that, it's much easier than having to go and see, is it there? Is it there? Is it there? Is it not there? Is it there? That kind of running back and forth. It's bad enough having to do that with your local stores, your Walmarts and your Toys R Us's. But when you do know for a fact that this particular store, has it, you know what? Order it online. The extra $3 or $4 for shipping that you're going to end up paying, it's worth it in terms of the hassle of having to go there and the money you're going to probably spend on gas. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our Force Friday coverage. As you can probably see by, if you guys go look on the internet, there is a lot of stuff out there. I mentioned most of the stuff that's primarily interesting to me, most of it action figure related, that sort of thing. But there's tons of other stuff out there, different type of lines and things like that having to do with The Last Jedi. And like we mentioned earlier, there's more coming. Don't worry, there's a ton more coming. This might not be exactly, Force Awakens size, marketing push, but there's a nice hefty chunk of stuff. And as you've heard, I'm all for it. I like it. I've seen some interesting things. So, I can't wait for the next wave. And I hope you guys also enjoyed our Dream Control movies segment. A lot of these movies, still, I love them. I watch them every now and then. And because some of these are kind of old and kind of like off the radar type of films, people my age might be familiar with them, but people younger, they might not have seen Dreamscape or even The Cell. The Cell was kind of like a quiet movie, I think. It didn't make too much of a hubbub. The director went on to do some other stuff, but it's really good. And it is really good, and it's very artsy, and the visuals are something else. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show, and we will see you here soon at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
The Force is in your hands like never before. Use the Force Link to activate real movie phrases.
The darkness guides me.
And battle action sounds. Connect to over 30 Force Link figures and power up the TIE Silencer with lights and sounds. Control your epic Star Wars adventures. Now the Star Wars galaxy answers to you. Force Link Band comes with one figure. Other figures and vehicles each sold separately. Batteries not included.
If you would like to subscribe to our show, send us messages, or see video links to some of the topics we talked about today, please visit our homepage at geekfestrants.com or our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or iTunes at GeekFest Rants.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
GeekFest Rants is produced by Carlos Perone, copyright 2017.
This broadcast is part of the IC Robots Radio Network. Visit icrobots.com for this and many other nerd/nostalgia related podcasts. You won't be sorry for long.